Typically, our orientation program involves a faculty speaker where they share information about the current research, provide words of inspiration for incoming students, and talk about their expectations. This year, we decided to switch it up a little bit. And keeping in my running joke of Dr. Tom Rock is over enrollment and students enrollment services. Every year, more and more students come to this college. So my running line is, this is a bring your own chair college. Because I'm like, where are we going to fit them all? I don't understand that. And what we're doing in this format is we're going to have something called Faculty Conversations. And we decided to do that this year because we have a current TC student who really is like a male Oprah Winfrey. And I use Oprah because she's a billionaire. So I say that nicely, Brennan, because when you get to that level, please remember me. I'm just saying. Okay, so we're going to do this talk show style. So now I'd like to introduce Brennan Dubose. You may come. He is a current PhD student at Teachers College, Columbia University in the English education program. His research focuses on the intersections between media, culture, politics, and education. His media interests have led him to complete internships at Fox News, BET, MSNBC, the New York Times, CNN, and ABC News. He is currently a contributor at NBC News, where he writes stories on race and education. Joining him, his special guest this morning, is Dr. Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz.
Good morning, everyone.
She is an associate professor of English education at Teachers College, Columbia University. That means tenure. Awesome, congratulations. She earned her master's degree from TC and her PhD from NYU. She's concerned with equity pedagogy. Her work specifically examines the racial literacy knowledge of teachers, the development of culturally responsive pedagogy, and the literate identities of Black and Latino male secondary students. Dr. Sealey-Ruiz is a co-founder of Umoja, Readers and Writers at a New York City high school, where she facilitates a critical thinking and writing course for adolescent males of color. She provides professional development on culturally responsive education for teachers and administrators around the country. Prior to joining the faculty at TC, Dr. Sealey-Ruiz was the research associate with NYU's Metropolitan Center for Urban Education, and she worked in corporate America for 13 years. She is also founder of the Racial Literacy Roundtable series here at TC, an informal discussion group where graduate students and national scholars engage the TC and community-wide on issues about diversity in education. So with that, I will now turn the mic over, and please feel free to join in later.
Welcome again, everyone. Hope you guys are enjoying yourself this morning. Again, my name is Brennan, and I want to just dive right in with my first question, Dr. Sealey-Ruiz. Could you please share your professional journey and how you got to where you are at this point, and maybe also include some of your current research and projects?
Good morning again, everyone. Thank you so much for choosing Teachers College. We are glad that you are with us. To answer your question, my journey to TC was not a straight path by any means. I think it's been a wonderful one, an intriguing one, and one that started with knowing that I wanted to be a teacher by the age of 13, but also knowing that whenever anyone asked me what I wanted to do, and I told them I wanted to be a teacher, their first response was, well, teachers don't make money. Right? Okay. So, I still became a teacher anyway, right? But I had some serious concerns in terms of helping to take care of my family, and that allowed me to change my path in that sense, or redirect it. And I started working for the New York Times straight out of college as a marketing and a circulation assistant. And, was bit by the corporate America bug, and after the New York Times, became a promotion manager for Business Week magazine. And at that time, I was really thinking about wanting to go back to school. I also knew at 13, really around the end of high school, that I wanted to pursue a PhD, but I didn't quite know what that meant. But right around the time of leaving Business Week, I really thought hard about continuing my education and decided to leave Business Week and to apply to NYU for a job as Director of Marketing for the School of Continuing and Professional Studies. And my plan was deliberate in the sense that I thought that I would go to NYU and NYU would pay for my degree. Be careful what you wish for. That's exactly what happened, and I was a promotion director. Believe it or not, the first African-American person to be a director for the School of Continuing and Professional Studies in its 45-year history. So it was pretty remarkable. But by my second year in, the desire to go back to school was still there. And I began to go to school at night and pursue my PhD. I went to school at night to TC while I was at the New York Times. So I've always had two trains running, my career and my education. And working for NYU, I decided I absolutely had to go back full time. And here I am.
And we're happy you're here.
Thank you.
My next question will be, what was your graduate student experience like? Challenges in managing multiple responsibilities, as you said, family, school, work, personal matters, and how did you handle the stress and not give up?
Well, giving up was never an option, so I'll just start with that. My graduate experience was amazing. I always said that Teachers College taught me how to think, and it's true. I went to NYU for my BA, and that was a typical undergraduate experience. But when I came to TC, for the first time, I had been asked, believe it or not, what do you think? What do you believe? And I have to say specifically, it's so powerful for me to be here 20 years later, teaching in the same program from which I graduated, being mentored by, specifically I'm thinking about Professor Ruth Venz, who was a professor of mine who really impacted my way of seeing teaching, of seeing the world, of engaging students critically in examining text, examining their lives, and examining the world around them. And so it was an amazing experience. I'm so grateful for my experience at TC. In terms of the responsibilities, around the time I came to TC, I had also gotten married and moved from the Bronx to the Lower East Side. So my commute, it seems like, oh my goodness, it was 75 minutes away. So I had a commute, I had a new husband, and a new degree that I was pursuing. So I won't lie, it was challenging. It was challenging. I had to learn how to manage my time, but it was all worth it. It is worth it, because once you decide you're going to do something, whether it's a graduate degree or starting a family or getting a new job, once you are focused on it and you understand that you have supports around you, because by the way, no one does this alone. So I'm not sitting up here saying that I'm this superwoman, although I did have on my Supergirl shirt yesterday. I was at a picnic, right? So I do feel empowered when I put that t-shirt on, right? But no one does it alone. And once you recognize the supports that are there for you and also build the supports along the way, I do believe that you can do just about anything in your life.
Thank you. My next question will be, what recommendations, word of advice, do you have for students beginning their graduate journey?
Bless you. So in that sense, I want to say two things. Know thyself, and also be kind and recognize those around you. Don't just see the students that are sitting next to you or in your master's or doctoral program as competition. Really see, as Chelsea was saying earlier, and by the way, congratulations, Chelsea, on becoming the new president of the Student Senate. It's a very robust Senate here at TC. But what I really want to say is really look to the person in your program, to the left, to the right, they may become your friend, as someone that you can build with as you move along. and not just someone that you're competing against for grades. Bless you as well. So that's what I would say. Know thyself and be kind. Say hello to each other in the hallway. You know, look up, right? Instead of just trying to get to class. And recognize what's going on around you. But know yourself, know this institution. Thousands of people apply to TC each year. Not everyone gets in. So now that you're here, the question is, what are you going to do with it, right? How are you going to both give to the institution, but get something back from the institution? That's what I would say.
That was good.
Thank you. It's from the heart.
Absolutely. My next question will be, for some people, TC represents a lifelong dream. How would you help someone navigate their dreams and expectations with the TC experience?
It's a beautiful question. I think I have to go back to what I previously said just a moment ago, and that is know thyself. So you know your limitations. You know what you're willing to do to achieve something. So first and foremost, know that and respect those limitations, because I think in getting your degree, if you have to sacrifice so much of your physical and your mental health, I don't know that the degree is quite worth it. I don't know that it makes it as sweet as it can be. So I think respecting your body, when your body feels a certain way, know that it may be time to rest. TC is very rigorous, very rigorous. The students in my program, and I'm sure other programs are similar, they take up to 16 to 18 credits per semester, right? And they have observations in schools. Noah went through the program. He's here now as a PhD student. In your second semester, you're finishing off, you might be taking a 35-point program or a 34-point program, and then you're doing student teaching. So in addition to if you have children, or you have elderly parents, or you're working, or you want to have a little bit of a life, right? We try to fit in the life. No, well-being is very important. I think you have to really listen to your body, and then have those around you who can check you, right? So if your friend is looking really tired and haggard, and looks like they haven't had water for about 3 days, you know, give them a cup of water. Say, you know, come to my room, why don't you just take a rest? So, you know, I'm going off from the question, but I'm being very, very serious about understanding your limitations and respecting your body and your mind as you go along this journey.
Thank you. My next question will be, the graduate experience at Teachers College provides an experience of privilege, access, obligation, and responsibility. Could you talk a little bit about that?
It is indeed a privilege to call yourself a Teachers College student, as a master's student, as a doctoral student. And I think you're quite lucky and blessed, I would say, because you're walking into an institution that has a history of people who have come here with a dream, with an idea, and made an impact on the world. And I think if there's one thing I'd like to lovingly challenge you with, is to always keep that in mind. How are you going to leave the world in a better place, right, than when you found it before you entered TC, or rather after you entered TC? It doesn't take a lot for us. We can look to our left, to the right, to know that the world is hurting, and many people in the world are hurting. So whether people are being hurt or killed because of their religious beliefs, their race, class, sexual orientation, there's a lot of things in the world that are not so great. And that gives us opportunity. So many of the folks, if you look for the tradition of TC, whether it's the person who created Blackboard, or the person who created Blue's Clues for children, or the Happy Birthday song, and many, many other things, people have created products, programs, and opportunities that have really changed the world. So again, I ask you, why are you here, right? Sure, you're going to walk out with a wonderful degree, and from a marketing perspective, having been in marketing for 13 years, TC is an amazing brand. I'll be honest with you. It will open doors. It will allow you an opportunity to be considered for a job when other people are not. So you'll have that branding, but the question is, what will you do with it? And I think your opportunity to be here is highly resourced. TC welcomes lecturers from around the world. I think there's one other thing I want to say. I know you'll be busy, but really every now and then, pay attention to what comes out of the Office of Diversity, what comes out of the Office of Student Senate. I happen to be involved with 2 programs here, Racial Literacy Roundtables, Civic Participation Project. When you see these things advertised, really take a moment to go to these events, because the resources here to help you follow your dream is immense. What was the question again? I'm only kidding, I knew what the question was. You get the point. I mean, TC offers you so much, so much. The question is, what will you do with it while you're here and when you leave? There's a rich tradition of people who have come with that same question and really made an impact on the world.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My next question will be, how can we encourage, and we as professors and former students, encourage students who are currently coming into the institution to reach out to the Harlem and surrounding communities, as well as always remembering to stay humble, yet hungry, and not accept the status quo, and finally, make a difference?
One of the things I want to say, I was a student here at TC about 20 years ago, and I've now been a professor in waiting, now receiving tenure. Very grateful and happy about that, for 6 years. And what I've noticed is TC has had a lot of criticism hurled against us in terms of, what are you doing for the Harlem community? And I'd have to say what I've seen under President Furman in particular is the creation of the TC School. And what I've seen from my professor colleagues is really their engagement in Harlem communities. I'm thinking specifically about my colleague, Dr. Laura Smith, who's a clinical psychologist who does work surrounding and within the Harlem community. And she's not the only one. I still teach high school, and actually last year I had an accident, I broke my leg, so that was the first time in 5 years I had not taught high school. But part of my research, my new research, is working with young people who are connected to the juvenile justice and also the foster care system. So a new project that I'm starting this fall will be within a child care agency within the Harlem community. So I'm not unique. I'm one of many, many professors here who understand their responsibility to the Harlem community. Can there be more? Absolutely, but that's also where you come in. And the only thing I would say is, in response to Brennan's question about being responsible and humble, is that when you enter organizations or schools, when they allow you to come in, really respect that. Don't see it as an opportunity to do research on people, but to do research with people. To really see the people in front of you. It's a privilege to be invited into a place to talk to children and their families. And I think to hold the TC reputation intact of being respectful of the Harlem community, you are an ambassador. So every place you go, you represent not just yourself, but also TC. So I would say understand what it means to be invited in to someone's life, to someone's home, to an organization. And learn a lot, yes, but never have the mindset of exploiting it for the gains of an article. You'll lose more, I think, in the end. You'll gain so much more when you're doing research with a population. Does that make sense? Right.
Thank you. And my final question for you. As graduate students begin their tenure here at Teachers College, Columbia University, could you please share one personal advice that you were given during your graduate experience that they could use moving forward?
Wow. That's an amazing question. Only one answer, huh? Okay.
Yes.
So if it's only one answer, then I'll have to think about my mother and my grandmother and the advice that they gave me when I went to pursue anything at all. And that is always to remember where you came from. And I take that very seriously. My father, who's now deceased, was from the island of Barbados. He was a pharmacist. And my mother came from Alabama. And my father was very educated, obviously, to be a pharmacist. You had to be. And he was invited to come to Columbia University on a full scholarship to complete his degree. And my mother is a reentry woman. My mother is someone similar to the women that I've studied with for my dissertation. She's someone who had all of her children and then decided to go back to school for her high school degree and then eventually her college degree. She never completed college because she had to take care of my grandmother. So I think growing up with my sisters, having a grandmother in the home, my father, my mom, they always told me, no matter where you go, remember where you came from. And that in part is why I take the Caribbean with me, the Caribbean, some people say, the South with me, but particularly is why I take the South Bronx with me everywhere I go. I was born and raised in the South Bronx, nurtured there, a child of the 80s, came of age during the hip-hop era, and so much of the music that people listen to that they find really cool is just something that was natural for me. And so remember where you came from. That's what I would say. Don't lose sight of that.
Thank you. Could you please give her a round of applause? All right, so next, I believe there is a Q&A session. So I will put it out for you guys. Do you all have any questions for Dr. Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz?
For both of us, please.
Sure.
Don't be shy. There's a hand over there.
Do we have a mic?
And please tell us your name and the program that you are entering.
Okay, thank you. My name is Iris. I'm, wow, really loud.
Now you know how we feel, Iris, right?
Yeah, I'm just,
Trying so hard.
I'm a doctoral student in the Sociology and Education program, and I was wondering if you could shed some light on the specific types of partnerships, like for participatory research in Harlem and the surrounding community that we could possibly get involved in.
Well, I would say that that would be, first of all, it's a wonderful question, Iris, but that would be a question for your professors within the program. The first person that comes to mind, of course, is Amy Stewart-Wells, who has a rich history here at TC, working on issues of desegregation. I'm not as familiar with what partnerships she has, but I do know that she and her colleagues are amazing professors who are doing wonderful work, which is probably why you applied to the program. And that's a conversation that you have with them. It's also a conversation that not just finding out where the partnerships are, but how can you get involved? What skill sets are you bringing that you can be helpful, as well? It's about giving and taking, learning, but also receiving education. So I would talk to Dr. Wells and her colleagues as soon as you can.
Great question. You have someone all the way at the top.
Answer that from a student perspective. I have a perspective as a... So I'll take a stab at it. Thank you for your question. And there's no substitute for time, right? In a way, time is not on our side, because if you're here for a master's program, well, it took me 3 years to do my master's program. Most people in my program, it takes them 18 months. Some people do it within a year. I think a year, 15 months. So to some extent, there's so much to do and not enough time. From my personal way of connecting across, is, number one, going to events. And I mentioned a couple of things before, Office of Diversity, there are departments that host lectures, the provost office. So when you go to these various events, when you make the time, you will meet students from across the college. For me personally, I went to events of a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Lalitha Vasudevan. She works in the Math Science Technology department. So I'm interested in many things. So I would go to those lectures. I would go to the things that she would host. And in sitting there, I realized that there were things that we had in common, right? That there were ways in which our research overlapped. And we just began to talk. And the same thing with Laura Smith, realizing after going to some of her events, having conversation, reaching out, reading the bios online, and seeing that, okay, well, our research does overlap in some ways. That's how, now I've had 6 years to do this because I've been here for 6 years, but that was my mindset of finding out who are my colleagues, because you can't do this alone. You know, who can I work with? And that's how I've developed that relationship, and now we work together and we will be writing together. Does that make sense? So I would say if I had to give you a bullet list, first, you know, go to the events, as many as you can. Don't be shy, introduce yourself. Introduce yourself to the professors. Do research. Know what it is that they're doing. And then if you can find a way to connect, then be bold and reach out, right? And then see where that relationship can take you.
And just to add, I know that coming into Teachers College, you have kind of like a set agenda with what you want to study and what you're trying to learn more about. But what you will find is there is a very diverse range of research at this college that will kind of open you up and really, I guess, expand your mind with what you want to learn more about. So I would say, just as what Dr. Yolanda Sealey-Ruiz just said, is just push yourself to go to a lot of different events. Look up different professors on the Teachers College website who might, you know, be focusing their research on something that you might not know too much about, but you might want to know more about. So just kind of really take advantage of the resources here. I thought that, you know, my research interests are kind of like a really, really broad, and that, you know, I was going to have a hard time trying to find my way. But actually there is a professor for everyone here who would, you know, be willing to facilitate your interests and needs. So just wanted to add that.
I can't say it enough again. There are some amazing professors at Teachers College. I mean, and I'm not into stargazing, but I will tell you, you know, you walk the halls and you're walking past people who are world-renowned in their field, on the edge of breaking in new research, running labs, running programs, who I find most of my colleagues are very humble and very brilliant. So you really are in such a great space and place to, as Brennan said, expand your mind and discover new possible research areas for yourself.
Are there any more questions?
Hello, my name is Nigel Frazier. I'm with the Math, Science, and Technology Department. And I just wanted to ask, obviously you are very busy, and we will all be very busy. But what do you do, you know, to get loose and relax?
I'm gonna let him answer that one. What do you do to get loose and relax?
How do you get loose?
You know, I do Zumba in front of the TV. That's really how I get loose. Other than that, the answers would not be appropriate, so I'm gonna turn it over to Brennan.
I actually want to pitch this question to Dr. Rock and Dr. Robinson. No, okay. So, I mean, you know, as I said, we all come from, you know, places from all over the world. Teachers College is a very international institution, which is great. But this is a very international city, and New York City has a lot to offer. And so for me personally, I just wanted to make sure that I took advantage of everything that I would watch as a little boy growing up on television. We all have seen a movie, a television show, the New York Times, you know, a magazine, something that comes from New York City. So whether it's going in Central Park, whether it's going to a museum, whether it's going to the movies, you guys are going to make so many new friends or associates or colleagues here. You know, there's so many different things that you guys are going to be able to kind of get into. So for me personally, it's just kind of like exploring the city, you know, whether it's going to Brooklyn, whether it's going to Queens, whether it's, you know, it's just whether going to a concert, you know, everybody comes to New York City, you know. I remember one of the first things that I was able to do, you know, just being, you know, in this city was going to see Jon Stewart. And I had a blast, you know, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I was, you know, somewhere else. So I would say for me personally, you know, that's, I guess, my way of getting loose and, and enjoying that.
And remembering what Chelsea said, you know, there's student senates, there are different affinity groups at TC. Again, that's what's so beautiful, that people meld together, but there are also groups like the Black Student Network. I know they have bowling night, they have happy hour. So again, being fully present to see what's around you, not being shy, you know, being willing to go to, if it doesn't matter if you're African American or not, if the Black Student Network hosts something and you like bowling, if it's bowling night, everyone is welcome. So go and meet new people, and there are different ways to unwind. So both from Brennan's perspective of exploring all that New York City has to offer, but don't forget that TC has a lot to offer too, through your student senate, through different groups. And just really those, you see a lot of, not billboards, bulletin boards. And I know they look very, very busy, but take time to kind of slow down and read some of the things that's on the bulletin board. A lot of times you will see events, student-sponsored events of people going out together, hanging out, going to a club, different ways. And that's good, because that's well-being. See, you're thinking about your well-being. That's right. That's right. Me? One more question.
Okay, we have one right here.
Oh, I think we have 5 more questions.
So we have a 2-part question. So my name is Kia, and I'm in the Department of Curriculum and Teaching.
I'm Sophia. I'm getting a master's in international educational development.
And so I guess my question, I'm particularly interested in your research, culturally sensitive sort of curriculum, and so can you talk about that? And then I guess her question.
My question is basically wondering how your experience at Teachers College affected your teaching and how you changed as an educator after you graduated.
Beautiful questions. I'll take this second part first. I'm still evolving, and that's honest to goodness. This is my 23rd year of teaching, and each year I go into the classroom, my classrooms here at TC, but also the high school classrooms that I teach in. I am always learning something about myself, particularly because I talk about culture and race and class and religion, all of those things that we've been told you don't talk about publicly. I'm constantly exposed. So each time something happens, if something happens in the news, right, if Trayvon Martin or some of the things that happen affects me. So I go into the classroom and we are talking about race. There's no way I can't talk about the current events. And because I'm human, I share with my students, this is why it's important for me to develop relationships with my students, to let them know how I feel. I don't use it as a soapbox. It's not just about my emotions, but I am one of the humans in that classroom that's trying to make sense of what's going on in the world. So again, 20 years ago, coming to TC changed me because what I'm doing now as a teacher, TC said it was okay to do. That TC said, actually, yes, that is a wonderful way to teach. Not just a progressive way to teach, but a humanistic way to teach. So TC has impacted me in that way. And in terms of culturally responsive teaching, just in a quick, 2-second soundbite, it is a particular field that has over now approaching 50 years of research. And very basic. It is about recognizing that as a teacher, you have a culture. The 30 or 40 kids in your classroom bring a culture, but multiple cultures. Culture as what I call the big C, culture in terms of religion and music and foods, things that they have at home or that are nurtured at home. There's also the culture of friendships, popular culture that young people navigate. And then there's the culture of schools. All schools have culture. Even classrooms have culture. So a culturally responsive pedagogue is someone who is aware that there are multiple cultures that are happening at any given time, and being fully aware that that influence should influence the curriculum. So it's, for me, it's a humanizing pedagogy. It's being the type of teacher that truly sees the student, even in the age of standardized testing, that you have this particular mindset. It's a habit of the heart and the mind that allows you to see who's in front of you in a very real way. That's a short. Does that help in some way? Well, thank you so much. Welcome to TC.